broadcasters tend to fill their grids with documentaries of various qualities. And then, next slide. Animation, as you can see, it's the financing even way, and also animation is a more international genre. The advantage of animation is that it's easier to sell since it doesn't have a language of shooting. You put a dubbing on animation and it becomes Kenyan, it becomes Senegalese, whatever. It doesn't have a language. So it's completely international, and of course, producers of animation in France, of series of animation, have more international partnerships than producers of fiction, let's say. It's easier to find co-productions in neighboring countries or further, co-production in China, in Korea, for animation than for fiction. And this is how the financing is split, and you see the share of the broadcaster is quite reasonable, only a fourth of the finance plan, and we are at the same level as broadcasters. Okay, next slide, please. Do you want to comment, René?
Yeah, just because you've been insisting of how important was the broadcasters financing. So I just would like to explain and go follow you on that, but giving more details. In France, the moment you have a project that you would like to present, to introduce to broadcasters, you go to them and you, with a script, a synopsis in your hands, then you introduce the project, and the broadcaster, after reading the story, it could be again a documentary or a feature film or series, after reading the story, if he's convinced that there is a potential in the story, that he likes the idea, he doesn't want this project to go to competitors, of course, he knows that this project is typically what he is looking for targeting the audience of the TV channel he is running, even if he's not the manager, normally this is the other programs or commissioners within the several departments that take that kind of decision. But he knows that he wants the story. So he's going to sign with the broadcaster. He's going to first determine himself by reading the story on paper, but with, of course, a good presentation. Yes, a good synopsis could be 15, 20 pages, and for a feature, we are talking about a finalized script with dialogues. But if he's convinced, then he's going to immediately sign an agreement with the producer. There will be three elements that will determine how much money the broadcaster will put on the table. How many run? First of all, let's start by duration. How long will be the rights that the producer will be giving him for broadcasting the program that he is about to produce? So it could be 6 months, a year, 5 years, okay. But the longer it will be, the more money normally the broadcaster will have to put on the table. The second element will be the number of run. How many run? Does he want 1 run, 2 run, 3 run? That's also an element that has a cost. And the third element will be which territories does he want to cover. I'm making a deal with KBC. KBC is only Kenya, so if I make a deal with Azam Media, Azam Media being a satellite bouquet, they will cover many countries. And by making a deal with them, of course, if I make a deal with Azam Media, no way for me to go to Tanzania, because they cover Tanzania, they cover Kenya, they cover a few countries. So for me, the producer, they are going to stop me by making deals with those countries that they cover, because I will never find another broadcaster in a neighboring countries that will accept to buy a program that has already been sold to a satellite bouquet. So those three elements, duration, number of run, and territories are going to determine the amount of money that the broadcaster will put on the table. Right? But then there will be a contract that will be signed, and there will be money given in at the very first beginning of the story to the producer. And that's how it works in France. And it's not the whole budget, but it's an important part with which the producer can start building his financing plan. And then the producer, having done that, he knows now that he owns a story for a first, again, for exclusive broadcasting rights. So what is going to be his interest? To accompany now the whole process of the production by working closely with the producer. The producer now knows that he is working for a certain channel, which has a name, So the broadcaster could be able to say, okay, my audience would rather like the story to go like this or like that. So the producer will have to agree a bit to adapt the story to the needs of the broadcaster, because the broadcaster knows exactly who is targeting, who is his audience, and there will be also in the contract a mention that when the raw cut will be done, the broadcaster will be invited to watch the raw cut before finalization, and he could say, no, here there is a sequence that might be too violent for our audience, so please change it. So this is a collaboration. There will be an agreement at the very, very beginning, money given to the producer, and now this collaboration is going to run until the end. The end will be when the producer will have completed the program and deliver the program to the broadcaster. And then the broadcaster, as I said previously, will play his role. His role now is to promote the film, to announce, okay, don't miss, 2 weeks' time, at 30 p.m., this film, short trailers, short teasers, and the more promotion will be done, the more larger will be the audience. And that's through the large audience, that's how the broadcaster will make money through advertising. So you see, this is a partnership. I mean, it should go this way. If there are broadcasters here in the room, this is the proper way of doing things, because you are giving, definitely you are like installing a collaboration with the producer from the very beginning. You are putting money on the table for him to be able to produce in good conditions. And the better will be the production, the better we will benefit, because you are the broadcaster. Who will benefit at the very end from the quality of the program? The broadcaster, of course, the broadcaster. It was a bit long, but I wanted you to know exactly this important situation that we're...
Thank you, René. It's true that it's very important to underline the fact that the partnership for television content is stronger between television, of course, the broadcaster and the producer. And an author doesn't have the same status in the television production as he has for film production, where the production of film is today more based on, at least in France, on the initiative of an author with a strong artistic project, whereas it is true that complying with the requirements of broadcasters needs for the team, author, producer to adapt a lot. There were strong words used today qualifying television as almost the opposite of film. Cinema being an art and television an industry. It is a way to caricature our reality, but fortunately on television you don't see only crap. You see also quality of production, obviously.
Look how important is the quality of the series, the TV series today. Yes. Most of the major actors now are playing in series, and they are far good.
The quality of the content that we can see on American broadcasters, on HBO, on Netflix, on Amazon Prime, it's also a guide. It's an inspiration for producers. Of course, there's an issue with the financial means, because you don't produce that kind of quality with little financial means, but at least it's an indication of what today the audience is expecting. The audience accessing such quality is expecting quality, and it's difficult to compete with such quality products with poor quality. Today the CNC supports 897 hours of fiction, 2,253 hours of documentary. As you can see, it's the genre that really is the more, produced, and 388 hours of animation. A year. That was in 2016. So it's a total of, it's more than that, because you have to add also hours of, sorry, there are things missing. There are hours of also live shows that are shot and or recreated that we also support. I didn't mention that. Theater, concerts, etc. that we also support. The tax rebate applying to the production of television content is a 25% rebate for fiction and animation on eligible costs. It's most costs except those that are above a certain level of salary. For example, an expensive cast is not eligible on the entirety of the pay. We will consider eligible only the basic pay for an actor, for a DOP, for a sound engineer, and that's eligible. Above that pay, it's not eligible. So on a finance plan, you don't see 25% of tax rebate. You see between 15, 18, 20, considering the fact that on the whole of a budget, there are a lot of elements, there are some elements that are not eligible for the rebate. But as you can see, it's quite a strong financing tool. And of course, it's a big incentive for producers to go on with their companies and to finance their works, of course. And then there is a 20% tax rebate for documentary. We have, Aurélien mentioned the Soficas, our tax shelter. It's a way for wealthy people, or people at least that have money, to invest in content, the production of films, knowing that they can save part of their taxes. As you can see, there's a cap at 18,000 euros a share for a Sofica, and today there are 10 or 11 Soficas gathering between 60 and 70 million euros. People with money buy shares in those Soficas. They get a cut, they get a reduction of their taxes, and they become co-owners of shares in the Soficas. The Soficas themselves have their own selection committee and decide in what pictures they are going to invest. Pictures or companies.
And just, if you allow me to add, if you look at the titles of a feature film, for example, or a movie, you'll see that the names are changing. A Sofica can be created especially to produce one film and to interest and to get money from those private investors.
Then, of course, to finance content, you have the CNC schemes, and as I told earlier, it's divided basically in two types of support. You have selective grants. The selective grants are awarded to projects considering their qualities, and mostly they are artistic qualities. It's true, it's very true for the film industry when we support films. It's a little less true for television, where quality is probably considered with less, it's less demanding, I would say, compared to the interest in terms of industry. An application typically, and it's an opportunity maybe to mention the fact that we can support, I already said that, we can support Kenyan feature films. Basically, you structure an application with a budget. You have to have an estimation of a budget, a finance plan. How are you going to finance your film? And of course, inside that finance plan, there is a CNC line, of course. It's provisional, it's an expectation. A budget, a finance plan. The contracts that the producer has with the authors, the scriptwriter, the director, maybe the music composer. Sometimes it's the same person, sometimes it's different persons. The co-production contract, the work plan, and the script, of course. The treatment, a script. If it's fiction, a script. If it's a documentary, treatment, a synopsis. If it's an animation, you have to document with a visual Bible, the graphic design, so people can evaluate. And generally, we try to evaluate projects also considering the previous works of directors. So you provide films. Today, you provide with links. A link, people can watch a short film, a feature. Oh, this director is good. This director cannot direct an actor. This director doesn't master light or sound. But this director, yes, has genius. He did a great short film. Let's support him for a first feature. That's selective. Committees gather, it's not us, it's people like you, gathering in committees. All of them read the dossier, evaluate, discuss, and try to identify the best projects. It's totally subjective, of course. You could imagine a system of evaluation trying to objectify the evaluation with point systems. It exists. In Europe, there is a very famous fund called Eurimage, and we have tried to systematize the evaluation of a project. It's very difficult to do. We created a grid with 10 points, 5 for the artistic aspects and 5 for the economic production aspects. And we were supposed to evaluate with a grade, a number between 0 and 1 for each one of those 10 criteria to say, yes, the director is good, 1. The story, the script is great, 1. But the co-production between Kenya and Nigeria is weak. Why only Kenyan technicians? 0. So it was a way to try to make an evaluation that was more transparent than the usual subjective, intersubjective evaluation, which emanates from a discussion between professionals. It is true that it is easier for the members of the committee and more comfortable and pleasant to just have a conversation and try to have a consensus emerge. Yes, we all like that project. Okay, we support. Sometimes in a discussion you have 2 people who love the project, 3 that dislike it, and then the president of the committee really doesn't know, and in the end, the decision that's made is ambiguous. Was it legitimate? But today it works like this. You have to know. So it's intersubjectivity. Generally, a strong application with let's say it's a fiction. When you have a very strong script that's really developed for a long time and properly maybe co-developed with your foreign partner, and it arrives on the table of the committee, it's strong. It means something. And today the decision is mostly based on the script, on the qualities of the script. The qualities of the director himself, for confirmed directors, of course, it matters. You are Lars von Trier, you arrive with a weak script, but you're Lars von Trier. So what do? It happens. A new Haneke movie with a weak script, it's rare, it happens. But of course, a good author with a good script, it's more obvious, it's easier to support. But today, in our evaluation system, the script for a fiction is key. Automatic grants, the idea is encouraging companies to go on with their activity. You release a separation as a distributor, 1 million tickets sold, we keep 250,000 euros for you in our bank. And that money, as a distributor, you can use it later to release another film. You're a producer, you made Intouchable, you sold 20 million tickets, we keep 7 million euros for you. You want to make another film? Yes, you can use that money for a new film. And of course, for producers, knowing that they can rely on that money, it's great because it helps their companies to go on.
Yeah, but they generated this money, so that's...
They generated that process. No? It's not money that arrives directly on their bank account. They already have money arriving on their bank account, but we keep some money for them to make another work, and only for that. They cannot use the money to buy a car or a house. Whereas the money that they raise directly on the market, they do whatever they want with it. The distributor of a separation bought a very nice house. So that's the automatic system.
And Julia, if I may ask something, the automatic, how does it work for TV? I start a new production company. I'm totally new. I start a production company. I become a producer. I produce my first documentary. I can only...
You don't have access to the automatic.
I don't have access to the automatic.
You have to create your automatic.
So exactly, that's what I wanted to explain, how to create automatic.
You create your automatic through selective. So when you don't already have an account, you come to us with your project.
2 films, broadcasts in the following year, or I don't remember how it works.
The principle of support for television is that you arrive with a broadcaster. We don't support a project for production if you don't have a broadcaster involved with you. And then the kind of money that you're going to raise with the selective is in anticipation of what the automatic will be generated, and it's function of the time of broadcasting, multiplied by a value per minute according to the type of work. There's a value for documentary, a value for fiction, etc.
But after producing, let's say, 2 documentaries that benefit from a broadcast, then I have access to automatic. Yes. Meaning that my third project, the CNC cannot refuse to help me. Yeah, that's what
you are entitled
wanted you to explain.
With the automatic system, you are entitled to support and at least to raising the money that you generated. But we only check that the work that you're going to make is a European work, that the broadcaster is putting enough money in the production, so it's detailed between the brackets. 25% of French share in the production, that you have European qualification, meaning that the people that make your documentary, there are enough European people making it, that you have a minimal spent in France, a minimal contribution of a broadcaster. So we check those minimal criteria, and then you are eligible to get your automatic, to use your automatic money. The obligation of the broadcasters in terms of for the production of television content, it was already mentioned by Aurélien, but the free TV, private and public, have an obligation to spend 10 to 12.5% of their turnover for works that are considered of heritage value, because they are also forced to invest in flux, in live shows, but their production in terms for what we call heritage value is those things that remain as works, a documentary, a fiction, an animation.
We call them works because they have a commercial value, opposed to programme de flux, as we call them in French, talk shows, varieties, things like that. The moment you have a broadcaster as broadcast, then there is, this is it. The program has no value. Documentary, feature, animation, those have values.
Commercial value.
Have a commercial value. And those are the ones that have helped by the CNC.
For non-specialized pay TV, they have an obligation of 8.5% in works to produce works of heritage value. And for cinema specialized pay TV, as they have an obligation to invest in cinema, their TV obligation is smaller, it's a 3.6% for works of heritage value. Is there a next slide? I don't remember. Yes.
Okay. So just quickly after that, we would like to interact with
and then we need a discussion.
We will discuss
so the total number of hours supported by us was 4,864. For a total production cost of 1.6 billion euros. The contribution of broadcasters was of 862 million euros. The CNC contribution 255, and foreign contributions, co-productions, pre-sales to foreign, or purchase of foreign broadcasters, distributors, 147. We produced last year. To bear in mind that those are, in a way, the official films. But aside of that, directors want to make films in a free way. So we call them the films sauvages. It's films that are produced outside of the system, and it's perfectly legitimate to make a film on your own if you think you can do it. And 60 of those films were made last year. It's more difficult for them, of course, to get distribution because they are not in the system, and the system facilitates access to distribution. So when you are completely outside, then to reach the markets is really difficult. But yet, people don't want necessarily to do all the paperwork and also spend the time, because producing in the system takes a lot of time. I was in Lagos recently, and I talked to producers who told me, but when I want to make a film, I take my camera and I shoot. So of course, you cannot enter the system and get public financing or a broadcaster involvement if you shoot just when you want to shoot. It takes a lot of time. For films, the total production cost was for French films, French initiative films, majority French films, 1.2 billion euros. The broadcaster's contribution, as you can see, 300 million, the CNC, foreign contributions. And we also support short films, the production of short films. So 48 shorts were supported before production on the basis of the script. 31 shorts were supported after production, considering the quality of the film. We gave 26 grants to short film directors to rewrite the script, and 3 grants for residencies where they can write. I don't think there's another slide. Okay, that's it.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you. Seat. Right, where's Monique? Right. Okay, it's open now to questions from the audience. Okay. Do you have a mic? Yeah. Broadcaster. A broadcaster. Right.
Hi. Just as the route from NTV. You might have mentioned something, maybe for me it's more for clarification. 2 questions. One for Rene. When you were taking us through on some few elements to look at when you're talking about duration, number of runs, etc., yeah. I just need to understand, how do you navigate the copyright aspect? You know, who owns the copyright, the IP? Is it producer X, or because of involvement, what percentage of that do you own? That's one. Then the second bit was to do with the kind of partnerships where Julien, you talked of the producer needs a broadcaster before coming to your end. My question is, again, do I need to sign a deal with the particular producer, I being a broadcaster, and then I come to you, or does the producer come to you after I've signed something with him? Thanks.
Okay, so yeah, the producer comes to us with a deal that is signed with you, but he's the leader in the project. He remains the leader, even though, of course, he cannot do anything without you, because he does for you in a way. In the beginning, he had the project, or maybe projects can be born in the head of a broadcaster that finds a producer to bear the project. But to us, only the producer comes, but with the deal. Concerning the rights, it's been a fight, of course, even in France, between broadcasters and producers. But there are, so I think it depends on the contracts, but we've been always trying to protect independent producers and authors. In any way, authors keep rights that cannot be alienated. That can, so authors remain owners of rights all their life. Producers give away rights for a certain time on specific markets. So let's say for a 10-year time, you can have a deal with the broadcaster saying that that broadcaster will have deals with other broadcasters in Europe and manage the deals. But I think it's a contract-to-contract deal. But what we have trying to promote and protect is rights of independent producers because they are weaker in the system than broadcasters.
So when there was a rerun, the broadcaster has to...
Yes, so for a specific work, if running the work is outside of the initial deal, but the broadcaster wants to show, it needs a new deal with the owner of the rights, that is the producer. And of course, and then it generates revenue for the authors too.
If I may, just a follow-up to that. So I've signed a deal with producer X of Kenya. Now this is in relation to jurisdiction and, of copyright, where I've signed a deal with producer X of Kenya, but because of the digital aspect of broadcasting, the work is seen, say, in Tanzania or Uganda. So how do you navigate the jurisdiction in relation again to the copyright of the producer?
Okay, you want Justice? Yeah, Justice. I didn't recognize you. Hi, Justice. What you would like to know, for example, if you make a deal by securing the exclusive broadcasting rights for a certain period with a producer that has introduced a project to you, you want to know that if you ask for rerun for a 1-year period, who is going to pay the rights to the author, to the director, to the actors for those rerun? This is your question? Am I right? Not exactly?
Well, it's in that relation, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. How does it work? You have to help me.
The system is a system of pre-sale. So the deal is initial when you have a deal with a producer and you agree on an amount to produce the film, and it corresponds to a certain number of showtimes when the work is ready. So you don't have to pay any more for those showtimes that are in the contract. Are you talking about maybe the fact that the producer might have sold it to a broadcaster in another country?
No. It's more for me the broadcaster. If I may, closer home, we are carried by Signet and Pang, meaning DSTV, NTV is a bouquet of DSTV. That means I've commissioned work from, say, Kikwetu Production for Kenyan territory. However, because of now the digital space, it spills over, say, to Tanzania or Uganda. Yep.
It should be in the contract, specified that there's a certain number of territories that are required. But if a work is broadcast on territories that are not in the initial deal, you might sue, or I mean, it's unlawful. You might sue the producer or the broadcaster abroad.
Okay.
Justice, let me, so from my own experience, normally the producer, all the people that can claim for rights, the producer, this is his business to work on that and have a contract with them. He will make a contract with an author, with a director, with all the people that can claim for rights. So he is also the producer on his side, must also sign contract with all those people. And by this contract, the producer is granted from the rights, and then he can do his job of producing and selling to different, and make several agreements with different broadcasters. And then there is also now for the broadcasting itself, many countries in Europe have acknowledged the author rights, and when you broadcast, you have normally an information note that gives details copyrights, but all the music you've been using and all that, and the broadcasters in France pay a certain amount, which is kind of flat amount for all the music and the kind of rights that could be have to be paid. Because if you rerun the program, normally for each run, you have to pay the people that can claim for copyrights. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks.
Pleasure. Okay. No? Yeah.
What I need to do, please, just not yet. What I'd like us to do is, what have you picked out from this very in-depth breakdown that we can actually apply in Kenya today? What do you feel? This one, we applied it to make a difference. Joki, do you have something to say about that? Okay, Joki would like to say something about that. What can we apply from this? And then we put pressure on the right people to apply it. We have KFC in the house, we have KFCB in the house, we have the ministry in the house. Yeah, go ahead, Joki.
First correction, I think the list you've just said, they've already left. Are they here?
Who?
The KFC, the ministry,
Yeah,
they're here.
yeah.
Okay, sorry.
They're officials.
I'll tell you why I'm saying that, because mine is also a question, but I'm not asking it as a question, it's a takeaway. The tax shelter, tax rebate, and I'm making a comment this and also asking a question, how they make it work. Because if it's the shelter, I don't know what they mean by the shelter. Is it like they have various taxes where they are zero rated, so they don't pay the taxes at all? Or is it the rebate where you are refunded? And if you are refunded, like you talked about paying the actors and all that, if you are refunded as a producer, what is the immediacy? Do you get that immediately? Do you first spend and you're refunded? Just a guide, not so much in detail, but a guide, because that's really what we need in Kenya, really.
There are many ways to implement such tools, but in our system, it's on the company. The company files every year certified accounts to the Ministry of Finance with a result, financial result. And then there's a calculation of the amount of taxes that you have to pay as a production company, and we integrate the rebates. So sometimes it's just a reduction of the taxes that you have to pay, but sometimes you don't make profit. So the government will cut you a check corresponding to the rebate. But it happens generally the year after, because it's when you submit your tax returns. So that's how it works. And the shelter. The shelter, it's you are a wealthy person. You have 18,000 euros to invest in a Sofica. You go to your bank. You ask your bank to buy those 18,000 euros share, that share of a Sofica, and then you can say to the tax administration, yes, I bought a Sofica share 18,000. I'm entitled to a tax reduction of 7,400 something, and that amount is deducted from the total amount of taxes that you have to pay.
This is the only way to attract those big guys, to attract their money. They need to find an advantage in investing in a film production. So this tax deduction is a good way to attract them.
Okay, my question is, you said there is producers who are producing the movie by themselves, and there are those who are in the CNC. Is it also about the compliance? Why are they producing on themselves without not in the CMC system? Yes. Is it because of the compliance, or why are they not the members?
They want to go fast, maybe. They don't want to do any kind of paperwork because they want to feel free. They want to make a work more energetic, maybe. Or maybe they don't want to pay the actors on the set. Because if you want to be certified by CNC, either for a short, for a television production, for a film, we control that you pay everybody according to the law, with a minimum salary and the social contributions. So if you don't want to do that because you don't have the money or because you don't like paying people for whatever reason, you can do that. You can work with friends, a friend actor, or maybe not a friend, but someone that you're not going to pay, and then you're outside of the system. Yeah.
And to acknowledge what said Julien, even the budget, when you work on the budget of a film, the CNC is proposing you a certain structure as to build your budget. So you also have to follow strictly the professional way of. Sorry. We need to close out, sorry. No more questions?
Let me suggest there are two here. Can I suggest that you make them very short? I mean, what we'll do, we'll review them in the next forum. Yeah? Okay, but just go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Actually, mine was more of a clarification. I just wanted to know, you said the broadcasters pay the producers. So on our end, we buy the content from the producers, yeah? So does it mean that as a broadcaster, I'll have to buy the content and also buy the content from the producer and as well fund the content?
Oh, okay, sorry.
Because normally what we do, the content creator comes with the content, we buy the content. We either license or commission. But in this instance, you're saying that we need to fund.
Of course, broadcasters buy content. For example, French broadcasters buy American series. So they go on markets and they buy content. But what we try to develop in France is our own creation. And for that, we force broadcasters to pre-buy an amount of work. So you are forced to put forward money to the works producers that you choose. You're not forced to go to any work, but you have to get involved in the production of a work before it's produced, not after. And you have to take a risk along with us, with the producer. If you don't take any risk, it's an easy life. To wait for the producer to take the risk. And then producers arrive, they have spent, they have sweated, they have spent, they have sold their house, and they arrive with content that you don't buy. So the idea is sharing the risk. Yeah.
TV is like cinema, a risky business.
There are two ways. You now having become a broadcaster, or you go to those TV markets and you buy 40 hours of documentary at the same time from a distribution company. The work is done. Or, as said Julia, you also start and make your mind ahead when a producer is introducing a new project, and you support that. That's what we are also pushing and obliging the broadcaster to do, to determine themselves far in advance.
I just want to, we've been talking too much about producers and broadcasters and so on. I just want to know if in the next maybe session you could address the position of the actors in the French film industry and TV, because you mentioned here a while ago something about paying the right, according to the law, the right amount of money to the actors. I'm having a terrible time with the producer and myself of the film that we are going to start shooting, of knowing how much I should pay the producers, the actors, the whoever, the technical team, and so on. This, I understand, is as a result of the creative industry being put at the bottom of the labor laws. They don't even exist. Yeah. So they are sort of miscellaneous laborers. Yeah. I would like you to address that.
Yes. It depends on the type of budget. But so we have a system where when you have a very cheap very cheap production, you are entitled to paying people at the minimum wage. The general minimum wage, the same for an electrician, for anybody. At a certain level of budget, you are supposed to pay people at a wage that has been negotiated between each profession and the producers. And it's validated by the government. So you have an official union rate for an actor, for a DOP. So you have a reference, you know exactly what price. You have a reference grid.
Yeah. And,
you can pay more, of course.
There is more?
you'll have to be good. Yeah.
Right. Thank you very much, once again, Aurélien. I think.
Aurélien.
Aurélien. Yes, Julien and Isabel. Okay, I got it. We will have more and more of them tomorrow. The issue of rates, labor rates, is a very big issue, and I think that is something that we need to actually get organized in Kenya. We don't have that. We actually need to do. We have it. We have a guide, yes, from associations. You do already have it. Okay, so you can see that he doesn't know, and he's a producer. I'm a big-time producer of that. Okay, she joined KFTPA, so she says. Round of applause for Renee as well. He's doing a great job. I wish I had a deep voice like yours. You're such a deep voice, talk like this. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we want to do a wind-up, 10 minutes of wind-up. What have we learned today? There is a wonderful young lady who has been making sure that she's taken notes and found what you are saying. We do have a rapporteur, who's Victoria right in the corner, but this other lady is a professor at the University of Kenyatta University, the Department of Film and Drama. I believe it is the arts, culture and the arts. And she just this weekend had her wonderful LIP Film Festival. I call it the LIP Film Festival, Lake International Pan-African Film Festival. She is none other than the delightful and very jovial Dr. Zippy Yokoff. Declare hapo. Only 10 minutes, then we shall go for tea after that.
Good evening. I'll try and take 5 minutes of your time. From this morning, we have had very delightful discussions, and I'm glad to start from the fact that with the LIP Festival, we only focus on films in African languages. So when we are thinking about starting another festival, I'd like to say, let's start with what we have, and I am here. This forum, I'll start with Dr. Ezekiel Mutua. He asked us, let's change the narrative of Kenya from a discontent nation to a land of beautiful stories. We are the only country in East Africa that has migrated from analog to digital. And Antoine Sivan told us that the arts industry is important in the promotion of integral cohesion in these cultural times. And IFC is here to offer an avenue for stakeholders to come up with solutions to develop the growing industry. Stefano Dejac, I hope I get these French names correct. He says filmmakers will have an avenue to learn new ways to tell compelling Kenyan stories, and local East African filmmakers have the potential to grow the industry without the voice of foreigners. Thus, we can tell our stories our way. The PS Joe Kudo told us, through this convention, we should look into the reintroduction of watching cinema in the country to address the key challenges and come up with solutions. CS Hassan Wario told us he is committed to support the industry financially and morally for the creative arts in East Africa so as to compete on the international front through partnerships and collaborations. He also stressed on the fact that we must research and tell our story in the best way possible. Our chief guest, Dr. Alfred Mutua, Governor Machakos County, he told us that cultural imperialism should not make us forget our stories. How do we portray ourselves, or do we stereotype the European perception of Africa in our films? What's your portrayal of Africa in films in terms of locations, economic status, and infrastructure? He also told us there's a need to embrace technological advances and a need to stop talking and start working on the growth of the industry. The government needs to relax some of the restrictions for filmmakers as they only hinder creative expressions. He also requested us to politically tell stories that enable our people to choose good leaders before corruption and bad governance eats us up. The CS John Musheru, Minister of Information of ICT, he also told us to look at opportunities and platforms presented through the different mediums. He also asked us to find ways of giving entertaining, educational, and informative films through technology, because the youth are already producing 360-degree movies. The CS Dan Kazungu from Ministry of Mining, he requested us that Africa needs to have its own iconic event where we mount, we anoint, we crown the winners, and we make them as the leaders of the industry. He said that by 2018 we should have a whole week hosting a film festival in Malindi. A hall in honor of Mikatilili Wamenza is coming up, and he told us that film is about celebrating our cultures. In the plenary, we talked about the growth of the film industry lies largely on the private sector. We also agreed that we should strive to make money through film as well as celebrate our cultures. And we agreed that culture is the backbone of our stories, and we should focus on collaborations and partnerships. Then we went for lunch, and we ate and we ate and we ate. Then we came back in the afternoon. And in the afternoon, we've discussed the French model. Oh, this was after tea. No, we drank, and we came back. So in the afternoon, at 11, we talked about the French model. Again, with the French names, forgive me. We have Aurélien Palix. He told us that the French government supports productions through big subsidies and tax credits, especially when the films have locations in France, and this is for both local and international producers. Thus, there is more locations featured in films, which is good for tourism also. He also told us that there's public finance institutions to give guarantee to film producers, thus more credits to producers, and this is at a low interest of 4%. I think we would like that so much. Isabel Mariani, she told us that the licensing to the broadcast media in France is free. They belong to the state, and they are leased for 5 years for radio and 10 years for TV on the following conditions: that there's no political favoritism, and that there's political pluralism and political interest. He also said that the station must protect the minors through classifications, and she also stressed that in France on Wednesday is a day of movies, thus there's no TV, and also on Saturday is a family day, and because of culture, they keep that as a treasure, because she said culture is a treasure and we must protect it as much through regulation. Julian Ezano told us about the film funds. He stated that they come from admissions in cinemas, TV editors and distributors, also satellite cable internet distributors, also video on demand. Other avenues are also loans and grants, interest from loans and grants, professional fees. These are annual fees in proportion to business by every producer, and also through public registry of the films. The team, the plenary, the team of panelists also said there's no classification without censorship, and the Film Commission needs funding from local governance. Chris Foot of KFC wound up the morning session. He said KFC can do a lot, and they are lobbying for Treasury for more funds. He also stated that Communication Authority of Kenya's levies for TV industry go into ICT and not TV or the radio industry. Thus, there is need for conversations on the way forward. He also stated there's need for incentives, which KFC is working on. This needs a film fund, which KFC is also working hard towards examining best practices globally. It was also agreed that policies being looked at, especially on the having higher taxes for advertisings that are not done locally, is also being looked at. It was concluded that we need to have both cultural and the financial focus in the production of our films. Then we went and we truly ate and we drank and we came back. And now in the afternoon, we've looked at, we have had a panel discussion of 3 very powerful young men, moderated by a very powerful lady. It stated we must be proactive and aggressive and use the available medias in distributing our work. It was also stated there's still room for analog media as much as digital platforms, as revenue is limited. We are still at a stage where we need to utilize both analog and digital, and we cannot leave one for the other. The skills attached to learning the new VOD medium has been adapted on the go by many of us, and the advertisers need to adapt to that as well. It was also stated that the seamless integration of content distribution through technology from home to mobile phones needs to be adapted in the African continent, as it is already working in America. It was also stated here that what determines success in film industry is the passion and attitude and learning on the fly through internships and consistent practice. This is including education. I will add that. Cinema also, the whole team, we have agreed that cinema will be alive for a long time because of the magical experience like sound, the reality in picture, and now we have got the 3D, 7Ds, thus there's a more thrilling experience. We've also agreed that filmmakers need to stop thinking only as creators, but also as business people so as to get the market needs and to produce for the market. We need to look at policies and distribution channels where African content can be bought directly from producers or African distributors too. Distributors should also allow creators to have their work on their platforms for free and insist on real African original stories so as to attract advertisers. And we have had a small debate where distributors feel that the content creators can buy airtime in the broadcast stations. However, creators feel that the distributors need to pay even for cost of production before airing. It has also been agreed that we need to have Kenyan stories on our Kenyan screens because we have exciting, great stories never told before. And we need to think of the market before we create the films so as to be able to make money from the films. We need to enable producers to create good content by paying quality money for quality films. We have the professional expertise, both technical crew and cast locations and equipment in Kenya, and we can do this. It's also been stated content creators and producers need to work together to fill the 40%, and we have to be very realistic about the value of our work versus the state of things and grow together. We have to go the extra mile to market our work. In summary, we have just 5 points. 1, we must strive to tell our stories in the most original way. 2, we have to market our works aggressively in every way possible. 3, content creators and distributors must work together. 4, government must create good infrastructure and policies for faster industry growth, and there is need for attitude change between filmmakers, content creators, and the audience to enable growth of industry. I hope I've not taken more than 10 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Zippy Okoth. Appreciate you very much and for the good work. So those will be passed on to the repertoire. We shall be looking at them towards on Friday to just find out which of these are we going to take on and how we're going to take them on. All right? Now, energy levels are low, but I have got an excellent announcement for you. First and foremost, there's chai out there for you. Kuna chai na vitu za kubite. you can have that immediately. But in the house, we have our host for the cocktail, Hubert Pear. He is the head of cooperation, European Union. Herbert, are you here? There he is. Round of applause for Herbert Pear. He is our host this evening, and he tells us he'll be ready for us. We will start the official program at 6, so we can give you time to have tea, let it go down kidogo before. Unaita kujenga nini? Foundation, weka base kwa sababu hapo pengine si msingi, kujenga msingi basi. Umesikia? So be ready, we want to have a nice time together. We'll do 1 or 2 speeches, but basically it's a time of networking, getting to know one another better, get to know our friends from Tanzania, from Uganda, from Israel, from America, and South Africa as well, and of course our French, Ethiopia, by the way, where's Ethiopia? Where are you? Oh, and Nigeria, is he here yet? Yes, you do have a, yes. So get to know these people, and if you're interested in either what Joel is doing, or interested in what, what's her name again? Kavindo is doing in music, you're interested in what Frankie can do for you, you know? Yeah. In Mombasa, what's happening in Mombasa with Raya TV, let's talk to one another, let's build this thing. And we've got script writers here, we've got actors here, we've got producers and directors, we've got fixers over there, we've got, I mean, powerful here. We've got academics. Where's Wamboi? Wamboi was here earlier. She's okay, she's around, but not that Wamboi. You know, there's another Wamboi Kiai. That's the one I was looking for in that corner there. Yes, so ladies and gentlemen, the energy, oh, and we have digital media. Yeah, Sinashinde. Yeah, digital media is here. So let's talk to one another. This is the energy that we require to be able to make this industry really happen. So I will release you now. God bless you, each and every one. Tomorrow morning, we start the function, our session at exactly, is it 8:30? Registration 8:30. So at exactly 9 we start off, and we'll be on time just like today, okay? So let's keep time, you guys, when this call time, you're there at 5 a.m. or even 4 a.m. So let's make it time. We will start again at 9 o'clock sharp, but 8:30 registration outside here, and your cup of tea. So come early, have your cup of tea, then we come in and we start together, all right? Are you happy? Excellent, God bless you all. Let's see you at the cocktail down at the Kegwa waterfall. DJ Georges in the house.